Have you ever noticed how power looks unbreakable until it isn't? How some people walk through life convinced they are untouchable, only to discover that strength without God is a fragile thing. We live in a world that applauds confidence, crowns success, and bows to those who seem unstoppable. Yet beneath the armor of pride, there is often fear, and beneath loud victories, a quiet reckoning waiting to happen. That tension between human power and divine authority sets the stage for an ancient story, one where kings who once terrified nations are reduced to fugitives in the desert. This is where the story of Zebah begins, not at the height of his rule, but at the moment when all that once made him fearsome begins to unravel under the hand of God. Zebah was a Midianite king ruling alongside Zalmunna during a dark season in Israel's history. For years, Midian oppressed God's people, raiding their land, stealing their harvest, and leaving families impoverished and afraid. Zebah represented more than political power. He embodied cruelty, dominance, and unchecked authority. From his perspective, Israel was weak, scattered, and easy to crush. But what Zebah did not realize was that God had already begun working quietly through an unlikely deliverer named Gideon. When Gideon pursued Zebah and Zalmunna after a miraculous victory with only 300 men, the chase moved deep into unfamiliar territory. The Midianite kings were exhausted, confident they had escaped judgment, yet unaware that God's presence was still guiding Gideon step by step. Even when towns along the way refused to help Gideon, mocking his mission and doubting God's promise, the pursuit continued. This was not fueled by human vengeance, but by obedience to God's command and trust in His justice. Eventually, Zebah was captured, stripped of his power, and forced to face the consequences of his actions. Gideon confronted him not just as a military enemy, but as a man accountable before God. Zebah's defeat revealed a deeper truth. Victories gained through oppression cannot stand when God rises to defend the weak. The king who once struck fear into countless hearts stood powerless before the purpose of God, proving that no throne built on cruelty can endure. One lesson from Zebah's story is that unchecked power always meets its limit when it collides with God's will. Zebah ruled by fear and force, but he could not outrun divine justice. This reminds us that influence, success, or authority mean nothing if they are not surrendered to God. What looks impressive to the world can crumble in a moment, when God decides it is time to act. Another truth emerges in the persistence of Gideon. Though tired, rejected, and underestimated, he kept moving forward because God's presence was with him. The story challenges us to keep walking in obedience even when support disappears and encouragement dries up. God often completes His work not in the applause of crowds, but in the quiet endurance of those who trust Him fully. There is also a sobering warning in Zebah's downfall. Pride blinds people to reality. Zebah believed his past victories guaranteed future safety, but pride kept him from recognizing that God had already turned the tide. When we rely on our own strength and dismiss God's authority, we set ourselves up for a fall that could have been avoided through humility and repentance. In the end, the story of Zebah is not just about a defeated king, it is about a faithful God who sees suffering, hears cries, and acts at the right time. Zebah's power faded, Gideon's obedience was honored, and God's justice was made clear. The story leaves us with a choice: to trust in our own strength like Zebah, or to walk humbly in obedience like Gideon, knowing that when God moves, no power on earth can stand against Him.